What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Surprise Jab Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Ruger, surprised with new topics every single weekend, jabbing you with your daily dose of UFC, and we have ourselves a fun little episode today. Of course, with no UFC events until next week, we've been trying to find stuff to talk about, and we have some fun segments on today's episode. First off, and of course, we have some big new UFC fights that Dana White has announced. Very excited to discuss those briefly. As well, we're going to be dropping our NFL Divisional Round Predictions. Now, we are 6 for 6, so if you did listen the last week episode, maybe 252 or something, where we dropped our wildcard predictions, we predicted the whole playoffs, and as of right now, that's intact, so you can go listen back to that to know that I'm from the future, but we're going to be dropping our predictions again, and even just discussing the games in general. As well, we're going to be doing a dream fight in every single UFC weight class that I want to see happen either this year or next year. I tried to really think like this year, maybe next year, and it was kind of tricky to do, but I was able to conjure up one fight in every division I want to see. And as well, we're going to be looking at some of the biggest fantasy football letdowns from this past year. We talked about all the top performers, but we're going to talk about some guys that really underperformed this year, whether that be injuries, whether that just be underperforming in general. We're going to talk about that. So a lot of fun stuff on the episode today. I was thinking about doing this fun segment for the where I have ChatGPT predict every WrestleMania main event and I discuss it. And the main events that ChatGPT made for WrestleMania were so bad. So bad we couldn't even talk about it. But while WWE's on my mind, we actually will be dropping our Saturday night's main events predictions next week. They're hosting a card before WrestleMania, which is not WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, which makes no sense. I am pumped for the Royal Rumble, and that episode's going to be massive. UFC 325 and Royal Rumble predictions. Doesn't get better than that. But kicking off today's episode, we have some new UFC fights to bring to your guys' attention. We'll go from smallest to biggest. So first off, new fight announced for UFC Mexico, of course, going down on February 28th, as Douglas Silva de Andrade is back, the 40-year-old, competing again in the UFC for his 14th bout. He'll be taking on the debuting Javier Reyes. And, safe to say Javier Reyes had a great debut. He's coming from Colombia, coming off of the Contender Series, if I'm not mistaken. And this guy just looks dominant. He's 22-6. He is also 12 years younger. Actually, might only be 8 years younger, I think, than Douglas Silva de Andrade. But nonetheless, should be interesting. We'll be on the prelims of UFC Mexico. And right now, probably riding with the newbie Reyes in that one. And when we think of debuts, you're going to want to keep your eyes on UFC Seattle, which this card will be talking about a bit more. March 28th, as Julian Erosa is back. That's right, the 17-fight UFC veteran is back to take on the debuting LeRon Douglas. And LeRon Douglas destroyed Cam Teague so badly on the Contender Series. This guy is everyone's number one featherweight coming in off of Season 9 of Dana White's Contender Series. And let me just tell you, this guy looks scary. All right, he hits hard, he has flashy finishes, and he knows how to fight super well. So keep your eyes peeled on that one. That one's going to be a banger on the prelims. That's how loaded that card is. But Julian Erosa, I know you've been knocked out before, so watch your chin because LeRon Douglas is coming for your head. After this, all these fights are pretty top-tier fights. First up, this one going down at UFC Mexico. Marlon Chito Vera, the number 8 ranked bantamweight, will be taking on the number, what's he ranked now? 10. The number 10 ranked Dave Martinez. I cannot believe Dave Martinez is ranked number 10. He's 2-0 in the UFC. He's 13-1 professionally. And yes, he is only 27 years old. And he picked up a big win last year. He might have been Rookie of the Year, honestly. He went from literally unranked knocking out Samuel Oliveira to facing Rob Font on short notice and beating him. So clearly the UFC thinks he's legit. He's getting a tough opponent in Marlon Vera, ranked at number 8. We know Marlon Vera's good because when you watch him fight guys such as Davison Figueiredo, such as, I'm trying to think who his last fight was, Amin Zahabi, he's a tough guy. He's really tricky, and you got to be a certain level of good to defeat him. So we'll see if Dave Martinez can keep it rolling. To be honest, I don't know. I might ride with Marlon Vera in that one. I don't know if Dave Martinez, it's hard to judge him off a Rob Font win. It's not necessarily the most impressive win, so we'll have to see. But Dave Martinez, Marlon Chito Vera should be very entertaining. Along the same lines, bantamweight division. This one at UFC 326, March 7th, our third pay-per-view of the year. The number 12 ranked Rob Font takes on the unranked Raul Rosas Jr. That is right. The 21-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. is back in action. 5-1 in the UFC, if you can believe that. Picked up a win over Vince Morales this past year. Not the most entertaining victory, but nonetheless a victory we'll take no matter what we can get. And in terms of Rob Font, I was just speaking on him. Not the most impressive win, but they're trying to break Raul Rosas Jr. into the top 15, and this is how you do it. This is a perfect test. Can you hang with the top 15, or are you going to be, structured to the bottom bantamweights for the time being? My money is on Raul Rosas Jr., but this is super crazy, guys. There's a 17-year age gap between these two. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? We have a 21-year-old and a 38-year-old. It doesn't get more nuts than that. So, big bantamweight fights coming at you, but these next three that I have to bring to you are just so much fun. Starting us off, middleweight division, as Gregory Rodriguez is back in action to take on Bruno Ferreira. It was supposed to be Paulo Costa. That's right. This is going down at UFC 326, of course, on March 7th. It was supposed to be Paulo Costa, but the pull-out king. This is a crazy stat for you guys. Since fighting Israel Adesanya when he was 12-0, undefeated, he has had 5 fights and 7 canceled fights. He's only won 2 of them, nonetheless, and Paulo Costa has pulled out again. We do have another fight announcement for him, but real quick, Gregory Rodriguez, Bruno Ferreira, just such a great fight here. A rematch, 3 years in the making, this rematch. I find it absolutely crazy that Bruno Ferreira made his debut, shockingly knocking out Gregory Rodriguez, and here they are fighting each other again. I don't know who's going to win. I'm going to be honest. They are both so good in their own right, but what I love even more about Bruno Ferreira versus Gregory Rodriguez is it's truly a test of, can you hang with the top 15, or will you forever be the guy who's in that 16 to 20 range where you can beat everyone that's not ranked, but you'll lose to everyone ranked. So I love this. Honestly, right now, leaning Gregory Rodriguez in the rematch. He was winning that fight against Bruno Ferreira, and then Bruno just caught him with a beautiful straight back at UFC 283, January 2023. Phenomenal work. Excited for that rematch. And then the man of the hour, some may say, Paulo Costa is back. UFC 327 is, of course, going down in Miami, Florida on April 11th. And he's actually moving up to light heavyweight. That is right, Paulo Costa is moving up in weight to take on the number 6 ranked, undefeated, 16-0 Azamat Murzakanov. And if anything, the disrespect to Azamat Murzakanov for this fight. Azamat Murzakanov should be fighting a top 5 guy. He should be fighting Jan Blachowicz. He should be fighting Magomed Ankalaev. He should be fighting guys like that. Instead, he's fighting the light heavyweight debut of Paulo Costa. Kind of ridiculous if you ask me. I'm going to be rooting heavily for Azamat Murzakanov, and I'm excited for it. And one of my favorite things about Azamat Murzakanov is that he's a prospect, but he's also, and I kid you not, like 36 years old. So, we share the same birthday in October. I'm pumped to see this fight. Give me Azamat Murzakanov all day. And then the final new fight I have to bring to your guys' attention, the UFC Seattle main event. Seattle, Washington, March 28th, the number 6 versus the number 15th ranked middleweight, Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. What a fight. And it was when this fight was announced, I decided I am going to fantasy book matchups in each weight class on this episode, because who thought that we would ever be getting this type of matchup? Not me. It doesn't even make sense if you ask me. Israel Adesanya, Joe Pyfer, never would I have thought that they would have crossed paths, but lo and behold, here we are, and I'm all here for it. Adesanya hasn't won a fight. This may be hard for you guys to believe since 2023. All right, his last win was Alex Berra. Since then, lost to Sean Strickland, lost to Dricus du Plessis, lost to Nazim Imavov. So this is a big bounce back fight for him. And as for Joe Pyfer, he's lost one fight. It was back in 2024 when he took on Jack Hermanson and unfortunately lost. But since then, went out and beat Albert Magomedov, went out and beat Kelvin Gastelum, went out and beat Marc-Andre Barriou. I think he's ready for this. And honestly, give me Joe Pyfer. With that knockout ability, give me Joe Pyfer. So a lot of exciting fights. I'm pumped for all of those. And this is the time of year where you usually don't get fight announcements. And for some reason, we got a bunch. So thank you, Dana White. I truly appreciate it. And you know what else I appreciate is when players perform well. When players perform well in fantasy football. And of course, every year we have the top 10, and then we of course have guys that did not do well in fantasy football. So we're going to do a quick look, and this is just through the QBs, running backs, wide receivers, maybe a brief look at the tight ends for who we thought was going to have a good year and who did not end up having a good year for fantasy football. And I can speak on this as I'm a fantasy football champion, and I think I'm still waiting on $50 from someone who hasn't paid me up. So pay me my money because I'm a world champion. So for starters, we've already gone over the top 10 quarterbacks and how well they did, but just kind of cutting us off, at number 10, which number 10 was Justin Herbert. Number 11, Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes was having such a good year. Just got injured at the end of the year. It was very unfortunate what happened to him, but he did kind of fall off in weeks 14 and 15. So after just starting red hot, Chiefs fell off, and, that'll happen. I do want to say Jordan Love at 15, he had a, interesting year. He only missed the final 2 games of the year, and I know for a fact he was sat in that Minnesota Vikings game to end the year. But other than that, he had a lot of good performances. But I'll say he strikes me as a top 10 quarterback, at least in terms of fantasy. And this Packers team just didn't really have it going this year, and he kind of struggled. I think the biggest one is literally number 1 on the list, maybe of fall offs. It's Lamar Jackson here, number 20. That is right. And by the way, first 3 weeks, 29, 26, 27, it's typical Lamar. And Lamar's looking good. And then the Kansas City Chiefs game, all's going well, gets injured. He is out for 5 weeks. Not good. Back in week 9, 25-point performance. Looks like he hasn't missed a beat. And then just the fall off. And I'm talking like full games played from him. 16 against Minnesota, 4 against Cleveland, 7 against the Jets, 6 against Cincy. The fall for him was very unfortunate, and I know he missed some games, but really a rough year from Lamar Jackson. I probably, as bold as I can say, the worst year of his career, hands down. Another guy I want to say is Justin Fields. Justin Fields had some really good games. First game of the year, 29 fantasy points. Follows that up with 3. That's just not how it can go. All right, misses the Tampa Bay game, then comes back 27 against Miami, 25 against Dallas, then 4 against Denver, 4 against Carolina, 20 against Cincy. All right, comes back from the bye, 6 points against Cleveland, 19 against the Patriots, and then he is either benched or injured the rest of the year. So very unfortunate stuff from him. Joe Burrow, another one that and I don't know if Joe Burrow's ever going to get over it. I mean, dude drops 8 and 7 and then misses weeks 3 to 12. So he misses basically half the season. Comes back and, is able to put up a 19, 23, 5, 28, 20, 21, but the team overall is not winning. So Joe Burrow, really hope he's healthy next year. But when I'm looking at next year's quarterbacks, I think Josh Allen should be a number 1 pick. In fantasy, if you're going to draft someone, Josh Allen has consistently been 1, 2, or 3, and majority of the time 1. Back-to-back years as number 1. Josh Allen is just so reliable, and it's sad to see guys like Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson falling down the ladder. Another guy, Jaden Daniels, who was just riddled with injuries this year. Just couldn't get anything going. Obviously missed weeks 3 and 4, missed weeks 8, missed weeks 10 to 13, and, after the Minnesota game in week 14, he was injured or out the rest of the year. So Jaden Daniels, riddled with injuries, unfortunately finishes as the number 34 QB, which I find pretty unfortunate, if you ask me. And then I'll say the last guy I'm going to, give a little nod to has got to be Kyler Murray. And I know Kyler Murray got injured after week 5, but I do just have to say, I mean, it wasn't even, that good to, 18, 14, 14, 16, 15. This was a guy who was at one point the number one fantasy QB some weeks. So the unfortunate fall off of Kyler Murray is due to injuries, due to just the Cardinals not being a good team overall, and unfortunate year for him. But I think one last shout out I want to give, and it's not a negative, it's a positive. The fact Jackson Dart didn't start until week number 4 and managed to finish as the number 13 QB, also missing weeks 11, 12, and having a bye in week 14. It's actually incredible. Also, you didn't even play in the Minnesota game in the week 16. So I think Jackson Dart, best rookie QB this year, hands down. And yeah, as far as QBs go, Lamar Jackson, easily the biggest fall off. Moving on to running backs. Running backs have been more tricky. We obviously had at number 10, Travis Etienne. I really thought Tank Bigsby was going to start over him, and Travis Etienne had a great bounce-back year. And then I did want to shout out Ashton Genty, finishing at number 11, exactly where I feel like he should have been. I drafted him at number 13, and him finishing as a number 11th running back just feels kind of fitting. Was it a good pick? Absolutely not, but Ashton Genty did what he had to do, and, and saw it through without exemption, if you know that song. Now, a couple guys finishing outside of the top 10, bit surprised by Josh Jacobs, number 13. I mean, he only missed 2 games, you could say, but obviously week 18, Packers sat everyone, but he had some really good games, 31, 32, 20, 19, 23, but then he also had full games where he played only 4, only 10, only 4 again, and actually, funny enough, when he played the Bears, they locked him up both times. So Josh Jacobs, kind of a mediocre year at 13, fall from last year, and then hands down the biggest fall off. People warned about this, and it came true. Saquon Barkley just couldn't get into rhythm, and he started every game except the final one of the season where all the starters were benched. But I mean, he had 33 points in week 8, and he had, what can I give you? 21 in week 16. That's it. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single-digit performances this year. Not what you want to see from Saquon Barkley. Kind of funny looking at our Steelers running backs, Kenneth Gainwell and Jaylen Warren, finishing at 16 and 16, actually tying with the exact same amount of points. You can't even make that up. That's actually... Wow, that's actually one of the craziest things I've ever seen, actually. Wow, 217.1. Wow, but that's crazy, actually. Wow. Rico Dowdle, funny how he won the backfield for Carolina, and then they chose not to utilize him in the championship. He'll probably be on the move. Breece Hall, unfortunate year for Breece. Really was, and he didn't even get injured until the end of the year, so there's not really much. The Jets just really struggled, and I think ever since he got injured his rookie year, he just hasn't really looked the same, which is kind of tragic. David Montgomery really showcased that Jahmyr Gibbs has won the backfield. Not a good year from David Montgomery. He obviously had his occasional Derek Montgomery weeks, 29 points, 18 points, but other than that, stayed healthy, but didn't really do much. As far as Tampa Bay goes, Tampa Bay might have had the worst backfields this year. Bucky Irvin, Rashad White, and oh my gosh, what is the other guy's name? Perfect waiver pickup. Oh my gosh, it's Rashad White, it's Bucky Irvin, Sean Tucker. Sean Tucker is his name. And just all three of them were really popping off this year. So I was always very curious what we were going to see from those guys. And, just never really got it going, as far as running backs go, as far as which ones I think probably had, who had the biggest fall off? Saquon going from top dog last year to being number 14. I think you could consider him. He's a notable pick. It's really tricky. Trayvon Henderson, decent year for him with the Patriots. Really took him a while to get going. Woody Marks for the Texans, good year from him. In terms of who really had a big fall off, I think Bucky Irving, a lot of people expected him to do well, and he finished at number 34. So not a good year from him. Obviously, Alvin Kamara has been steadily falling off this year. Really bad example. I know he missed the final 6 weeks, but only 46 finished for position, which is just not good. And then really the one we'll point out who's really far down the list. Let's find a good one here. There's got to be someone. James Conner. James Conner, just the Cardinals overall. Cardinals have no run game. It's quite hilarious. So, running backs wasn't the year of running backs. It was the year of wide receivers. Running backs really struggled this year, and that was evident. But shout out Christian McCaffrey, still the top dog. As far as wide receivers go, a lot of interesting ones here on the list. Coming in at number 21, it's Justin Jefferson. And it's not his fault. It really is. And Justin Jefferson played every game this year and could only do so much. He really could. I mean, target-wise, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 11, 11, 10, 11, 9, 12, 9, 6, 6, 4, 8, 8, 5, 11. Did the best he could. Most fantasy points he got all year, 22 in week number 4. Just couldn't get it going with Carson. Couldn't get it going with J.J. McCarthy. Couldn't get it going with Brosmer. Justin Jefferson needs a Kirk Cousins behind the helm, needs a Sam Darnold behind the helm. That is how he will find success. Same for CeeDee Lamb. And now CeeDee Lamb, special case. CeeDee Lamb missed 3 weeks in weeks 4, 5, and 6 and got injured in week number 3. So not much to say there. But he did lose the backfield to none other than the number 5 guy this year, George Pickens. So George Pickens winning Dak Prescott's favor, which is just kind of a bummer for CeeDee Lamb. Elsewhere down on our list, Ladd McConkey. A lot of stuff was expected of him. He finishes at 30. Guess who's at 29? Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen somehow placed higher, and I have no idea how. Keenan Allen just kind of floated under the radar this year, just didn't really do much. Same with Quentin Johnson. Started the year hot and kind of fell off. I also think Rashid Shaheed being traded was kind of comical. He was able to put together, like 2 good games with the Seahawks, and he had like 2 with the Saints, but nothing much from him. Jordan Addison, Christian Watson, both kind of average years. Marvin Harrison Jr. tragically getting hurt, but other than that, wasn't doing much with the Cardinals in the first place. Just want to say that. The unfortunate falls of Jerry Jeudy and Cooper Kupp is just kind of a tale as old as time. Scary Terry McLaurin also had a rough year. He missed weeks 4 to 7 and 9 to 11. Also with all the quarterbacks under center. Not much for him to work with. Keon Coleman, probably one of my favorite ones this year. He finishes as the number 60 wide receiver. Starts the year off with 25 fantasy points. And everyone's like, this is the year of Keon Coleman. He proceeds to only get 2 double-digit games the rest of the year. Wow. Keon Coleman, just tragic to see. Same for Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was doing pretty good out of the first 6 games of the year. Had 3 20-point performances and 4 19-point performances. The 19th was just included in there. Misses weeks 7 and 8. Comes back in weeks 10 and 11. Doesn't do much and then gets injured and is out 12 to 18. But I don't think it would have made a difference. Really, just that whole team is rough all around. That poor Jets team. And then we had another of other guys way down the list. It's funny, Tyler Lockett being on the Raiders now. I can't believe he's still in the league, if I'm being honest. He always shocks me. Same with DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins used to be a top-tier receiver. It is now like wide receiver 4 on the Ravens. And then we are super far down the list now. Let's actually see. We're at position 108, so anyone past here I'd be very curious about. Calvin Ridley getting on IR. Sucks for the Titans with that. Adam Thielen actually retired today, if no one saw that. Just a little fun fact for you. And then the last one we can say, Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis with the Buffalo. He didn't do much. Even with Buffalo still, well, he is, but he's on injured reserve. So wide receivers, there is quite a big difference between the top 10 and the rest of the pack, and that is very, very noticeable. Now, for tight ends, the final position we'll look at here, and it's tough. It's tough to say, this guy had a bad year as a tight end because, as far as we know, tight ends are just they're their own little world, okay? It's tricky. It's tricky because tight ends, especially this year, Trey McBride just had such a gap, just such a big gap between everyone else. And I just think that it's so evident that, there wasn't really someone who had a bad year as opposed to having a good year. But, there are still some that I want to point out here. I think one that comes immediately to mind is going to be TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson just wasn't targeted. He finishes as the number 22 guy, and he just wasn't targeted. Only missed the last 2 games of the year, but week 3, 15, week 7 and 13 and 15 gets around 11 to 10 points. Just like no targets any game, which sucks because we know when he gets targeted, he's good. When he was on the Lions, when he first joined the Vikings, he was an absolute killer. Speaking of the Lions, sucks for Sam Laporta. Really wasn't doing much through the first 10 weeks, but then getting hurt the rest of the year really kind of sucked. Did put together 2 20-point performances, so you got to shout him out there. Funny enough, Mark Andrews finishing at 16, I think is a good year for Mark Andrews. I know he's just older now, and he used to be the number 1 guy, but as far as I'm concerned, good year from Mark Andrews all around. Elsewhere, Tucker Kraft was in for a massive year. He was doing very good. The 33-point game against Pittsburgh was good. He was looking even better last year, and just unfortunately, injuries holding him down. Evan Ingram finishing as the number 28 tight end is very shocking, being that he was out there every single play with the Broncos, and it kind of just speaks to how weird this Broncos team is with usage of their tight ends. Another example is David Njoku with the Browns, only missing weeks 7 and 9 and then 15 to 18, but just wasn't really of use to them. Fannin Jr. kind of taking over as the number 1 tight end on that team. And then really, elsewhere where I look, it's always funny looking at Isaiah Likely. He's always good for an occasional 20-point game, but not this year, at all. I always look at guys like Daniel Bellinger, who will occasionally drop some points, like 17 with the Giants one week. But yeah, everywhere I kind of look, wasn't really the year of tight ends. When we concisely look at fantasy this year, Trey McBride ruled the tight ends by a large margin. But Jackson Smith and Jigba, Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, George Pickens, this was the year of wide receivers. Running backs, decent year, but there's just like Christian McCaffrey was just number 1. The front center, just the number 1 guy. And then, also got to give a shout out to, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, all doing good. And as far as QBs go, Josh Allen separating himself from the pack. So a lot of guys underperforming, but as far as I'm concerned, wasn't too bad of a year. Lamar Jackson, the biggest letdown in my opinion. But I'll tell you what's not going to let us down, and that's going to be the NFL Divisional Round. I'm pumped for the NFL Divisional Round. I think it's going to be a fun old time. And we got 4 games coming at you guys. First one coming at you, 3:30 Saturday, Bills and Broncos. I like this matchup. I really do, and I'll tell you why I like it. It's because I think the Bills are going to win. I have the Bills winning the Super Bowl, I think, in my predictions. Why? I don't know. Why not? Why not? They don't have to deal with Lamar. You don't have to deal with Patrick Mahomes. This is the year of the Bills, and the Bills have just had a very stellar year. When I look at their losses, obviously there's the Patriots, and then, of course, the Falcons one is rough. Dolphins one is rough. Those are just random. Texans won. That's aged pretty good. They've also lost to the Eagles, which was rough. But, they come in, good game against Jacksonville, and they're taking on a Broncos team which hasn't played in a while. And they were able to beat the Chargers last time they played January 4th. But other than that, Broncos have just kind of one of the more just lower level number 1 seeds. When I look back, they haven't had a dominant win since October when they defeated the Cowboys. Other than that, and we've been through the Broncos schedule, we could go the whole year. Beating the Titans only by 8, losing to the Colts by 1, losing to the Chargers by a field goal, beating the Bengals by 25, pretty good, beating the Eagles by 4, only beating the Jets by 2, not good, only beating the Giants by 1, not good, only beating the Raiders by 3, same for the Chiefs by 3, only beating the Commanders by 1, only beating the Raiders by a touchdown, only beating the Packers by a touchdown. Wherever I look, this Broncos team is just kind of mediocre. And I really love this Bills team. They are as playoff tested as could be. So give me the Bills over the Broncos any day of the week, standing true with that prediction. After that, our night game on Saturday, 49ers and Seahawks. They're trying to be the Bears and the Packers with their trilogy, and I don't know if they're going to live up to it. because Seahawks and 49ers are both so skilled. When we look at their two games this year, 13-3 win for the Seahawks. That was the last time, their last game of the year on January 3rd. Last time they played before that, the opener, when the 49ers won by 4, 17-13. So this rematch is fun. I really do like the 49ers odds, but with how just kind of not outstanding Christian McCaffrey's been playing the last 2 weeks, with George Kittle going down, and with how dominant this Seahawks team has been, need I remind you, the Seahawks haven't lost a game since October 5th. That is over 3 months. Are you freaking kidding me? So I'm really rocking with the Seahawks here. They've been so good. And when they've been tested with the 49ers, they're winning by 10. With the Rams, they're winning by going for a 2-point conversion. They're beating every team they play, even my sweet Minnesota Vikings, who didn't even score against them. So Seahawks advancing to the conference championship. I don't think both 1 seeds are going to win. I definitely think the Seahawks can get this done. Moving into Sunday, 2 p.m., Texans, Patriots, they saved the good ones for Sunday. The ones where you don't really know. Because I feel like a lot of people are feeling Bills and Seahawks, okay? This one, Texans, Patriots, it's tricky. It's really tricky. Both teams have played. Both teams have picked up hard-fought wins. The Texans, 30-6 win over the Steelers. It was a hard-fought 30-6. I think a lot of people are going to look at that and be like, wow, they blew them out of the water. Wasn't even close, but... let me just tell you, it was the Steelers put up a fight until the fourth quarter, then collapsed. Texans have also gone on an absolute tear that I'll compare to the Seahawks. They have not lost a game since October 20th. Lo and behold, it was to the Seahawks. They've been doing good. They've been doing great. And I'll be curious to see how they do when they take on the Patriots, who, they're just good. They're a good unit. They put it together against the Chargers. Was it a good win? Yes. Was it pretty? Not really. It's kind of just a dull win, 16-3. Shut down the Chargers defensively. Did what they could on offense. Other than that, they've had only 1 loss, since I'm pretty sure, trying to use my memory bank here, since I want to say September. They've only lost once, and it was to the Bills. And that's what I want to see to go at the Super Bowl, the trilogy, the rematch. Give me the Patriots over the Texans. And, Texans would kind of be this year's Commanders. It would feel so weird if the Texans and Bills are playing and the winner of that is going to the Super Bowl. Worst case scenario, it's Broncos-Texans. That's the worst case scenario. If there's any team I want to see in the AFC go to the Super Bowl, it is the Patriots or the Bills, and I don't know why that is. It just is. But if the Texans make it, I won't be mad. I'll say if the Broncos make it, I'll just kind of be like, are you freaking kidding me? But it would be kind of cool to see Texans as well. Texans and Bills are 2 new faces. I suppose the Patriots have been at it for a while, so maybe I root for the Texans, but my prediction is going to stay with the Patriots. And then the main event, the cream on the crop, the game I cannot wait to watch, the Rams and the Bears. It's everyone's game. Everyone wants to see this, and it's because I think everyone's rooting for the Bears. I'm going to be honest. The Bears are just a team, which I compared to the Vikings. It doesn't feel like they should be here. It doesn't feel like when they're a team like that's in the playoffs, it doesn't feel like they should be here. And they are just allergic to getting blowout wins. I mean, I'm going all the way back until early or late November, I'll say, and every game's a grind. For the Bears, every game is historic in some regard, and I love their odds against the Rams. I really do. This Rams team is good, okay, but their offense is good. What's not good is their defense, and the one thing the Bears have been able to capitalize on is bad defenses when they break down. Now, the Bears, to win this game, it's just one thing they have to do. They have to be consistent. They can't continue to do fourth quarter comebacks. It's going to fail at some point. And especially with this Rams team, we know how hot they can start. I mean, look at the Panthers game. They started hot, but it really came down to the wire. It really did. So if I'm this team, I know it's possible. And as far as the Rams go, let's not act like they're 2-2 since December 18th. Let's not act like they've went win, loss, win, win. I mean, like they've lost to the Seahawks and the Falcons. We know it can happen. And, their last win before the playoffs, the Cardinals. Last win before that was the Lions, which is a good win, but that was just a shootout against a bad defense. So I'm going with the Bears here. Any day of the week, I'm betting on the Bears. I want to see a Bears and Seahawks go into the Super Bowl. I really like that. And if the 49ers win, we get a rematch between the Bears and the 49ers. So it's kind of a win-win if you ask me. There's not much really breakdown in the divisional round here. We got 4 games going down, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and it's going to be absolutely electric. But it's 8:45 at night right now. I still want some time to eat some banana bread I made and to actually enjoy my night and watch a show. So we're going to get through this next segment here, which is a fantasy matchmaking little thing that I'm going to do here. So I have gone to all 11 weight classes, and we will go from the lowest weight to the highest weight, and I have fantasy booked a matchup in each weight class. I really have. It is true. And we are going to discuss why I think they're going to win, who I think, and what matchup I want to see. So, first up here, women's strawweight. Okay, in women's strawweight, it was reaching. There really isn't anything. There's not like a dream women's strawweight matchup. The one that I elected to go with was Yasmin Lucindo versus Mackenzie Dern. And, I kind of hope Mackenzie Dern beats Zhang Weili because it feels like Zhang Weili is just going to come back and run house. It really is. And if we want to see another young champion in the UFC, Yasmin Lucindo is our best bet, because if you aren't familiar with Yasmin Lucindo's game, she's pretty decent. I feel like a lot of people are unfamiliar with Yasmin Lucindo. She's a very talented young fighter. She's right around my age, actually. I think her birthday is in January of my birth year of 2002. So she is also going to be, actually, it was just her birthday. So she just turned 24. Congrats to Yasmin Lucindo. As far as she's gone in the UFC, she's gone 5-2. I mean, I think she could be a fun young champion, maybe the youngest women's strawweight champion. And as far as Mackenzie Dern goes, make it an exciting run. Really do. Do it the best you can to make it an exciting run. But in terms of dream fights, I mean, is there one? We've kind of seen them all. I mean, Zhang Weili has fought in the number 2, the number 4, the number 5 ranked women, number 9, I could even say. So there really isn't anything. Maybe Fatima Klein or Alexa Thanera kind of on the rise, taking on Zhang Weili. I don't know. Women's strawweight doesn't really have much, but I'd say Yasmin Lucindo versus Mackenzie Dern. A little showdown of some Brazilians that would make for some good action. Next up, men's flyweight in this one. This one I want to see. Now, most people may go, I want to see Alexander Patoa, Manel Cape. I want to see Joshua Van versus Brandon Moreno. No. Let me tell you about the biggest Japanese fight you could make on the planet right now. The number 3 ranked Tetsuo Taira, the number 8 ranked Kyoichi Horiguchi. Let me tell you, this matchup would tear the house down. Tetsuo Taira is only 25 years old. He actually turns 26 in 2 weeks, and he's been incredible. He really has, and I would love to see him get a good matchup against Kyoichi Horiguchi. 2 Japanese fighters that I know for a fact would deliver in all aspects. I'm just being honest here. Okay, these two would be just, oh my gosh, it would tear Japan down. Now, Tetsuo Taira, he's on the come up. Like I said, he's a young gun. He's only 26 years old. He's been out here. He's been doing this. We know him. We love him, right? We love ourselves a little Tetsuo Taira. Now, as for his opponent, Kyoichi Horiguchi, returns to the UFC after a decade and crushes Tagir Ulanbekov. And to be honest, he's only 35. Like it's not too much of a difference there. It's only about a 10-year age gap, which actually, now saying that out loud, is pretty deep. But just the styles they fight, they can both strike. They can both grapple. I might give grappling to Tetsuo and striking to Kyoichi Horiguchi. But as far as that matchup goes, it would be the past versus the present in terms of the best MMA Japan fighters in the UFC right now. And I would love to see that. And honestly, it's not impossible for the coming year. I'm going to be honest. Neither guy's got plans right now. Flyweight's kind of wide open for the taking. Actually, Kyoichi Horiguchi's got a fight booked with Amir Albazi. So we'll see if Tetsuo Taira gets another title shot. If not, this would be a dream fight of mine to watch. Speaking of flyweight, we got women's flyweight, and this one was tough. This one was tricky because I could have gone with Valentina Shevchenko, but I'm actually going to go with Natalia Silva. I know she has a fight coming up with Rose Namajunas, but I want to see her fight easily, probably the biggest woman that's not in the UFC right now. It's Dakota Djokovic. Dakota Djokovic is an absolute killer from the PFL, and she's a dominant force. She really is. Dakota Dachevich has been killing it over in the PFL. If you don't know about her, you really got to check up on her. She's an English Muay Thai fighter. I think she might have a bit of Swedish in her. Is it Russian? She's got some type of a dialect or something. But as far as, mixed martial arts has gone, she was the 2024 PFL Women's Flyweight Champion. She is currently 15-0 with 12 knockouts and 1 submission, and, she's a killer. She really is. Doesn't really have any, totally notable names, but everyone they've thrown at her, she has just crushed and dominated, and you've loved to have seen it. They're actually got a fight booked with her coming up against someone. I can't remember, but her versus Natalia Silva, they both fight such good striking battles. I would really like to see those two throw it down. Natalia Silva has impressed me with her last few striking performances, especially the Alexa Grasso one. Kind of, wherever the fight was, she was getting the better of her. So as far as fantasy booking matchups go, dream fights, I would love to see Natalia Silva versus Dakota Dachevich. Moving on to men's bantamweight, and this one's kind of cliche, but I think it's tragic this fight is maybe never going to happen, and that's because, he might retire. Sean O'Malley versus Corey Sandhagen. I just can't believe these guys have gotten into their 30s just about, and they just haven't fought. And with Sean O'Malley saying if he loses the Song Yadong, he might retire, kind of breaks my heart, but the only way we get Sean O'Malley versus Corey Sandhagen is if he loses. It really is the case, and I always thought it would be such a fun stylistic matchup. I think everyone did, and the fact we might not get it is kind of unfortunate. It really is. And, I was kind of thinking about maybe like a Peyton Talbot, Raul Rosas Jr., maybe a Vinicius Oliveira versus Amin Zahabi, but no, let me tell you, Corey Sandhagen, Sean O'Malley, it was the perfect fight to make next, and Song Yadong just kind of crept in there and stole the fight from him, if you're asking me. So, really wish we could have gotten that. I hope we could still get it. It will forever be a bantamweight dream fight of mine. And then, as far as women's bantamweight action goes, this is some breaking news. Just to let you guys know, Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes are off. Their championship fight is off, and instead, we're not getting a women's bantamweight fight. We aren't. Kayla Harrison is injured, will be out for 6 months. She's gone for the foreseeable future. So I don't even know if you get an Amanda Nunes fight, but I'll tell you what, the only dream fight I can think of is Norma Dumont versus Kayla Harrison. Norma Dumont is the rare women's bantamweight contender which I actually want to see fight for the belt. She's on a 6-fight winning streak. Have any of the wins been pretty? Not really, but nonetheless, we need to get a new women's bantamweight champion defending the belt. Kayla Harrison is injured, so that will not be the case. I think a real formidable challenger would be Norma Dumont. She does present some challenges, I guess, but of course, we all wish we could have gotten that Amanda Nunes fight. What a shame. It's not going to happen. Moving on to men's featherweight, and I think we're actually getting this fight. I think it's going to be the main event for UFC London in March, and I really, it's kind of, crazy to think that we can be getting this fight. Leron Murphy versus Mozart Evlov. You have to understand how crazy this fight is. This is the number 1 and the number 4 featherweights on the planet fighting for a title shot. Mozafar is 19-0, and as for Leon Murphy, he's 17-0 with a draw. When else are you going to see such high-level matchmaking? And I really, I hope it's a good fight. I hope it does take place, but it's a dream fight of mine, and we're going to bring up another one where it's so rare you see 2 undefeated guys actually able to square off here, and Leron has the striking, Mozart has the takedowns, and fun fact, Mozart Evlov hasn't fought since December 2024, so if they do end up squaring off in London, which I hope they do, it's not official yet, Leron Murphy will have a little bit of an advantage from having fought sooner, and from also staying more active, good stuff there on Leron Murphy's part, but Mozart Evlov, Leron Murphy, little matchmaking dream fight of mine. Lightweight, I think it's everyone's. I think it's so possible. Ia Topira versus Paddy Pimblett. It's the biggest lightweight fight you can make right now. It just hands down is. I know we got Charles and Max Holloway. I know we're getting Gaethje and Paddy. I know Arman Tsarukyan's in the mix. But Ia Topira and Paddy Pimblett hate each other. They hate each other. And I think all the Paddy fans go, oh, he'll easily submit Ia Topira. All the Ia Topira fans go, oh, he'll easily knock out Paddy Pimblett. If Paddy Pimblett beats Justin Gaethje, which I think he will, it would be the most clear-cut way to get this fight. I really hope we can. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Give it to me. Inject it into my veins. Paddy Pimblett, Ia Topira. Gotta have it. Really gotta have it. And, with the fact that Tapira is probably only going to be fighting once this year, and the word that Arbitrarukian might even drop down to featherweight to actually try and get title fights, it's crazy. Because, whoever wins Paddy and Gaethje gets to fight Tapira next, and I'm really hoping it's Paddy Pimblett. Moving on up to welterweight along the lines of most valuable and Leron Murphy. This one's even more crazy. How about Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Michael Morales? Shavkat, 19-0, undefeated. Michael Morales, 19-0, undefeated. And get this, Morales has 14 finishes. Shavkat has 18. That's crazy. That's crazy. It's just so high level. And I don't know how they're going to matchmake everyone, especially with Islam being in the mix. You also got to throw Ian Gary in there as well. So many options. But from what I'm seeing, they might try and do Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates. If that does end up being the case, we can kind of process of elimination, Shavkat, Michael Morales, Ian Gary, and Islam Makhachev. And in my opinion, I would really prefer Michael Morales getting a title shot over these guys, but they might give it to Ian Gary. So I don't know whether it's for the belt, whether it's for a number one contender fight. Two 19-0 guys, Shavkat, Michael Morales. I would love to see that as a dream fight of mine. Moving up to middleweight, we have 3 weight classes left. This one was tricky. There's a lot of good ones you can do, but one where I think it would be so fun, they also have kind of a similar names here, DDP and RDR, Dricus du Plessis and Rainer de Riddle, the initial boys, squared off, just 2 guys who fight the weirdest styles. They're just the weirdest fighters, if you ask me, and Rainer de Ritter's taking on Kyle Barallo in the co-main event of UFC 326. I think if he wins that, him versus DDP is a no-brainer. It just makes complete sense to me. Both of these guys, DDP's in need of a win. Unfortunately, getting dominated by Hamzat doesn't do wonders for the image. And as for Rainer de Ritter, he was about to have a breakout year that choked it right at the buzzer. So, middleweight division, that's a perfect fight to make. It really is, and I love it. DDP, RDR, whether it's on the ground, whether it's on the feet, it would be weird all around. And honestly, I might lean towards DDP in that, if you ask me. Next up, light heavyweight division, and it's been on my radar for so long, and it's looking more bleak and bleak as time moves on. It's Jerry Prochaska versus Magomed Ankalaev, and it used to be Jerry Prochaska versus Jan Blachowicz, but for the longest time, we had 2 just crazy good light heavyweights just begging for a European card somewhere in Eastern Europe, somewhere even in Central Europe, and it never ended up happening. So, Jerry versus Jan Blachowicz is probably in the past. Jan Blachowicz has 1 more fight, if any, left. As far as Ankalaev goes, I don't know what to do with him next. Because there's word that Jiri is going to fight Carlos Ulberg, which would be a fun fight, but I really have wanted to see Magomed versus Jiri Prochaska. So if there is still a chance we can make that happen in Europe, let's please do it. I think it is everything the fans are begging for. And then moving on to heavyweight. It was tough. And honestly, I couldn't even figure out a heavyweight fight because obviously the obvious answer was going to be Tom Aspinall versus John Jones. Always was going to be the answer. But what I think now is the case, and I think it's going to be next, Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight, taking on Tom Aspinall. I think that's the next fight. Now, is that what I think is going to be next? No. I think that's the next real fight we should make. What I actually think is going to be next, guys, is Cyril Gane versus Alex Pereira for an interim heavyweight belt, just because they love doing interweight belts, or interim belts. I think that's what it actually is going to be next, but my dream fight, and what I would really hope is fantasy booking here, Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall, the biggest heavyweight fight of all time even. I think it's safe to say, because as of right now, it's weird to think John Jones versus Stipe Miocic is kind of actually the biggest heavyweight fight of all time, but never felt like it. It always felt like Stipe was on the way out and John Jones was kind of in the, not the prime of his life, but a really good spot. And, I think when we look back, the trilogy of Stipe and Daniel Cormier is legendary, but how much more legendary would it be if we were able to get Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall? So that's a dream fight of mine. Take it to the bank, book it. That is something I want to see super, super bad. But yeah, guys, that's a dream fight or 2, I guess, per every division. A lot of good ones. And I know that we're getting, into that time of year where we're going to be able to do UFC events every single week for the foreseeable future. So this is actually our second to last episode without our UFC predictions. We'll be back next week for a little episode early Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll be able to do our predictions for UFC 324. So guys, stay groovy, stay lit, stay on top of things as this weekend comes up. Go Bears. That's all I'm going to say to that. And also, we bought a camera. That is right. We bought a camera, so we're going to work out filming because I don't really have much time, guys. I literally get home at 7 o'clock at night. I have to be in bed by 10 to 10:30. I get no sleep every night, so we're going to really need to dial it up, get some YouTube videos bustling out. But I thank you guys so much for listening. I really do. I appreciate every single one of you. I love you all so much, and I'll catch you all next time on the Surprise Jab Podcast.